In the heart of Nazi Germany, silence wasn't just a choice, it was survival. Imagine waking up every morning knowing that a single slip of the tongue, or even a dream whispered in the wrong language, would lead you straight to a Gestapo basement. This wasn't a movie. This was the daily reality for Allied spies living undercover, deep within the belly of the beast. These men and women weren't just soldiers, they were ghosts. They lived as bakers, mechanics, and sometimes even as low-level Nazi officials. They laughed at Hitler's jokes and saluted the swastika, all while carrying secrets in their coat linings that could collapse the Third Reich. But here is the terrifying truth. The better you were at your job, the closer you were to death. Most people think a spy would be caught because of a bad accent or a fake passport. But there was a deadlier loophole, something experts call the paradox of perfection. Allied intelligence trained these agents so rigorously that their German was, quite literally, too flawless. While a local Berliner might use slang, mumble, or use sloppy grammar, the spy spoke like a perfect textbook. To a trained Gestapo ear, a man who spoke perfect German without a regional stutter was instantly a stranger. They were hiding in plain sight, but their own excellence was the very trap that could snap shut at any second. They were playing a game where the prize was a secret and the penalty for losing was everything. Before a spy ever set foot on German soil, their original identity had to be completely erased. This wasn't just about a new name, it was about a total biological and cultural transformation. Intelligence agencies like the SOE practiced what they called legend building. They didn't just give you a fake passport, they gave you a fake soul. Your clothes were stitched with European threads. Your pockets were filled with old ticket stubs from German theaters and crumpled receipts from Berlin cafes. Even your teeth were modified. If a German dentist looked into your mouth and saw a British or American filling, the game was over. You had to look, smell, and even decay like a local. But the physical change was the easy part. The mental strain was where most agents began to crack. Living undercover meant being on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You couldn't just turn it off when you went to bed. In fact, the bedroom was the most dangerous place of all. Many spies were trained to tie their ankles to the bed frame or sleep in awkward positions to prevent themselves from rolling over and talking in their sleep. Imagine the horror of waking up to find your German neighbor leaning in, listening to you mutter English in your dreams. Every conversation was a minefield. You had to hate what you loved and love what you hated. You had to sit in beer halls, listening to Nazi propaganda, nodding in agreement while your heart pounded against your ribs. You weren't just lying to the enemy, you were lying to your own reflection in the mirror. After months of this, the lines began to blur. Some spies began to forget their real names, lost in the suffocating fog of their own legend. They were living a lie so deep it was becoming their only truth. Once the legend was established, the real work began, and with it, the most dangerous game of cat and mouse in history. A spy's primary weapon wasn't a gun, it was a radio. But in Nazi Germany, a radio signal was a beacon that screamed, "Traitor." To send intelligence back to London or Washington, agents had to use heavy, suitcase-sized transmitters. They would huddle in dark attics or basement corners, tapping out Morse code while the clock ticked against them. They had a window of only 3 to 5 minutes before the hounds arrived. These were the Gestapo's radio detection vans, mobile units equipped with spinning antennas that could triangulate a signal's exact location with terrifying precision. If you stayed on the air a second too long, you'd hear the screech of tires and the heavy thud of boots on your front door. But the danger wasn't just in the air, it was in the very streets you walked. The Gestapo ran a society of suspicion. They encouraged ordinary citizens to spy on each other. A neighbor noticing you had too much coal or a shopkeeper wondering why you didn't have a regular job could lead to a visit. Spies had to master the art of the dead drop, leaving microfilm documents inside hollowed-out coins or fake rusted bolts in public parks. You would drop the item, walk away, and never look back. You could never be sure if the person picking it up was your contact or an agent waiting to put a bullet in your back. The paranoia was absolute. You lived in a world where a friendly handshake could be a coded signal, and a casual good morning could be a test. The pressure was like a physical weight, crushing the lungs. Every siren in the distance, every knock on a door, every lingering look from a stranger felt like the end. You were a single person trying to stay invisible in a country that was designed to see everything. Despite the suffocating fear and the constant threat of execution, the payoff for these shadow warriors was monumental. The information whispered into hidden microphones and tapped out in Morse code changed the very course of the war. Because of these spies, the Allies knew the exact locations of Nazi fuel depots, the secret blueprints for the V-2 rockets, and the internal cracks within Hitler's high command. Perhaps the greatest payoff was the Great Deception. Undercover agents orchestrated a massive web of lies that convinced the Nazis the D-Day invasion would happen at Pas-de-Calais rather than Normandy. This single piece of successful espionage saved tens of thousands of Allied lives and broke the back of the Third Reich. They didn't win the war with tanks and planes alone, they won it with secrets. But the cost of this victory was staggering. For many, there was no medal ceremony or parade. Dozens of agents were captured, tortured, and sent to concentration camps, their true identities remaining a mystery to their captors until the very end. Even those who survived often returned home as strangers. How do you go back to being a quiet clerk or a teacher after you've spent years being a high-stakes liar for the sake of the world? The legacy of the undercover spy in Nazi Germany is a haunting reminder of the power of the individual. They lived in a world where the truth was a death sentence and trust was a luxury they couldn't afford. They died in the shadows so that we could live in the light. So, the next time you look at a grainy photo from World War II, look closely at the faces in the background. The baker, the clerk, the smiling officer. One of them might have been a ghost, fighting a war you were never supposed to know about. Their greatest achievement wasn't that they were found, it was that, for the sake of history, they remained invisible.